Hi, I am Taryn. Welcome back to my channel if you're subscribed for a while, or welcome if this is your first time. Today I wanted to go over a few points on Kundalini Yoga. Now, back last year in 2021, I did a little snapshot that I was going to do a video about my journey in Kundalini Yoga. However, that never happened and I kept putting it off and off. And then it wasn't till recently I saw a video of, she used to be called Sirgun Kaur, and some of her instrumentals were on our engagement video. She's now called Porter Singer, and she was really opening up about her feelings around the topic. If you don't know, I've got blog posts on my blog about the time I read Premkar's memoir, White Bird in a Golden Cage. And from that, she disclosed a lot of wrongdoings and unethical behaviour from, we can now call him a leader. He is referred to as a yogi, but he was a leader who went by the name of Yogi Bhajan. Now, a report was done and he was found to be more or less guilty rather than not guilty of many things. And they're quite explicit for me to go through now, but I will say he definitely didn't practice what he preached. So I'll add some like little nitpicks and some snippets from my teacher training that I would like to tell people, because teacher trainings are still going on, and while that is beautiful, people are learning yoga, I think choose another yoga. So how I came into Kundalini Yoga and why I left it is the main topic for this video. I would try and stay on track as much as possible. Okay. So I came into Kundalini Yoga in 2014. I was at a different stage of my life then. I was in my 20s. I was with someone, but we were not married, and that we were living together. I didn't have any children. And I was in a job I hated, and the relationship was really destructive as well. And I didn't know it until about 5 years in, and then it came to 9 years in, that it was emotionally abusive and financially abusive, and ultimately I left that relationship. And some of me leaving I did attribute to Kundalini Yoga, but I won't say all of it. And now you'll hear stories of people say, oh, I stopped drinking because of Kundalini Yoga, oh, I stopped hurting myself because of Kundalini Yoga. I don't believe that you can attribute all of your healing and the work you've done to yourself to a thing anymore. I just want to put that out there, because I believe that people need to recognize that they have done that work. So I may have made a drastic change in my life when I was doing 40 days Radiant Body Kriya, but it wasn't just that. I know that. And instead of going home to my parents and perhaps taking some time to myself, I just did more and more yoga, and I was determined to do a teacher training because I really loved it so much. And looking back now, I think ideally I could have spent £250 a month on therapy rather than doing back-to-back yoga. Again, yoga is a brilliant tool. However, I think we are going to be in the age of denial if we just overlap our feelings with more yoga, more chanting, more volunteering. Because ideally and realistically, we need to feel, because we're human. I did have a beautiful experience, and that is how I came across Sikhi, or Sikh dharma as it's called in yoga world, or Sikhism as some people call it. And I would have never known about that if it hadn't been from Kundalini Yoga. I may have seen a picture of someone in a turban, perhaps one time, but I wasn't in the area where I knew people. So it is through that I knew what a Gurdwara was, I knew what Kirtan was, and that was really amazing. And I love the Gurdwara, I love Kirtan, and I also went to a Khalsa camp while I was doing my training, and this kind of shocked my teacher, who was also a practicing Sikh, that I would do such a thing. However, I wanted to learn more, and from that I realised that there was this crossover, and it was really confusing, because here was Yogi Bhajan saying this is a yoga, not a religion. However, he was including the first Sikh prayer and a lot of other Sikh prayers in his yoga. So I think that will always baffle me, because while it's beautiful to share it with people, it's also not okay for people just to chant it in 2020 for a certain thing, for prosperity, for better sex, for this, for that, when it has a really deep meaning in Gurbani. So, while that again was a beautiful experience, looking back, I went all in. And I now know and would advise anyone, if you're going to make some changes, even I made them quite small, but I did them very fast paced. And I don't regret them, but I do wish I had slowed down. And I think if you read stories of people that started Kundalini Yoga, or hear them on podcasts such as Guru Nishan's podcast Uncomfortable Conversations, you will hear that a lot of it came from some trauma. Now, I'm not talking about some traumatic experience that leaves someone traumatized necessarily. I'm talking about the experience I had that gave me that trauma of leaving an emotionally abusive relationship and being in one, for starters. And at the same time, before training, someone I supported and I talked to a lot, I saw as a friend, had died aged 21. Again, I think I say therapy, I could mean talking to people, talking about how I would have felt at that time may have been better than pushing myself at that time. One key aspect of Kundalini that gets to me now is the whole sense of everyone being the same. And I think what I struggle with at the moment is that I want to go back, not want to go back, but I'm going to make some changes in diversity and not fitting into a certain box. Because Kundalini Yoga is all about wearing white. And you may say that, oh, your students can wear whatever they want to class. Can they in a sadhana? Can they at the European Yoga Festival inside a tent? Because a lot of what Yogi Bhajan, Harbhajan Singh Khalsa, or we could just call him Harbhajan Singh or Harbhajan, because did he really deserve any of those titles if he's performing a lot of oral sex on his students while being celibate and holy and pure? Because a lot of what he said was not true. And I'm sorry if this burst the bubble for some people. It's going to. My bubble was burst a long time ago, March 2020. But and I think his story created a lot of cognitive dissonance, which is where you hear two things, they don't really match, but your brain kind of comes up with a difference and goes, huh, okay. And if you don't understand, you're told, well, it's silly, you don't understand. So like, okay, because you're making up that difference. So if we think about it now, Harbhajan Singh was a customs officer at the airport. Now in training, we were told that he was a customs officer at the airport and he saw all the Westerners, the American Westerners coming in, and they were all like on drugs and not looking after themselves. And he thought to himself, I know this, I've got this training that I had when I was young, and I will help them all train and be yoga teachers. However, none of that was true. He didn't meet somebody when he was like 8 years old, and then that person had him sit up a tree for 2 days. And who else knows what else? So the realistic thing was that he was a customs officer. He probably wanted to make money off people. His wife knew a saint, a Sikh saint, and a yoga teacher. One day he popped along and said hello to these two people, and that's how he weaved them in to his yoga. And then he took aspects of yoga, other faiths, Sikh, other things, and merged them all together and created this thing called Kundalini Yoga. And I think in training, we were kind of told it in a mystical way. Everything was like a mystical biography. And I hope it's changed. If people are on training or they're doing training, I hope you're not making it all about him, because that's what it was like. So I think nobody in that room really questioned, hang on, if Yogi Bhajan's like 35, what happened between him being 10 years old with this yogi and now him being 35? Because if he got taught by a yogi, surely he could have started teaching people when he was a lot younger. And there was this funny story that I either read or I got told in training about how, I read it in one of the training. So this is again false, we know now. So Yogi Bhajan was in Canada and he was going to teach at a university. However, the one person he was going to teach with, or he was going to get him started in these classes in a university, he happened to die in a car accident. And Yogi Bhajan was left with nothing and no one. Oh, how sad. Oh, cue the happy ending. And then he met someone who said, come to LA and teach there. So he started teaching and throwing coins into the car park so the poor hippies could come to his class. And perhaps some of that is true. However, we also know that he got someone pregnant in Canada and had to move to America. Not so much of a yogi. I think another failing is that, yes, he took things from the ancient ways of Kundalini and Sikh, and possibly some Hindu and some Hatha yoga, is that he wasn't honest about it. And he may have had some level of intuition, but we all know that a good cult leader is very charismatic. So I don't necessarily feel that he channeled everything that came to him. I feel like he was making it up a lot. And he, instead of someone like the lady who created Nia dance, she would openly say, this dance is taken from, I think it's something like jazz, Tai Chi and yoga. She's told you straight away. However, this person hasn't. They've just called it Kundalini Yoga by Yogi Bhajan, the ancient art of Kundalini and Sikh dharma interwoven. And I think, again, that's a massive failing and something people should think about. Something that I think should have been brought up and I think wasn't, was the fact that there was this theory that in Kundalini Yoga, you couldn't practice it after the 120th day of pregnancy. Now, I have problems with this because when you are pregnant, you can practice yoga throughout your pregnancy. And Kundalini Yoga is the most vigorous yoga I have ever experienced. So why on earth would you practice it in those most important 3 months? Now, this is something that the meditation teacher, Tara Bramovich, I want to say, something she's openly talking about now because of the fact that she had a miscarriage while she was in 3HO. And prior to these years of information coming out, I never knew this lady was in 3HO. So now I know why she wears black. Because when she approached Yogi Bhajan with this knowledge, he shamed her into saying, well, you're not good enough to be a mother, or your body's not good enough to hold a baby. And again, how rude. We can't look at someone and think that they are the most godly person on earth, because chances are they're not. And I think that was a big problem with Kundalini Yoga. I think everyone shone this torch up his bum and made him this huge light. So, as you know, I came into Kundalini Yoga through the fact that I loved meditation and I loved yoga. I'd done other styles before. I'd done Hatha when I was growing up. I did Bikram. Again, problems with Bikram now. And then I did Kundalini Yoga. The other great thing that did occur in my life is that I stopped drinking alcohol. And that was primarily because I was noticing that I was getting hangovers more. I was noticing I was really lethargic the day after. So the consequence wasn't great. And I preferred to get on my meditation mat and meditate in the mornings instead. So that's exactly what I did. I think there is so much that I could include in this video, but it's not all coming to me now. And then every time I write notes about it, I just end up with sheets of paper of stuff that I can include. I think there were more problems with the teacher training that I can ever talk about. I think it was a subtle indoctrination. I think Yogi Bhajan was close to being an MLM because he wanted to recruit. And guess what? He wanted more people underneath him. He wanted to be at the top, and then he wanted his main staff, who effectively he slept with, or if they were male, they slept with everyone. And then he wanted it to go down, so that his name just went beyond everyone, beyond all the generations. Because don't forget, this happened in like 1969, and in 2022, we're still talking about it. I think he was very clever, like all leaders are. I really like the account Rama Wrong. I think it's been a great resource for people, and they have highlighted there was a great TikTok of a girl with blonde hair, and she was going through her experience, and she was highlighting how you can get sucked into a cult, because I thought you could get sucked into a cult, which is effectively a membership or a group that is not serving you, and you end up doing so much for this group and your whole personality changes, and it's actually destructive. And I think I could really see some problems with Guru Jagat's way of doing things. Ironically, she left 3HO. She became her own entity and business doing Rama. However, while I was a fan at the beginning, I was getting a bit confused, because one day she'd have her hair in a half turban with her hair long, then she'd have big earrings, and then she'd just be talking about herself, especially on her podcast. While it was interesting, she was just talking about herself a lot. And I recognised that from Yogi Bhajan's lectures, who was, guess what, just effectively talking about himself. And the researchers that I heard on the Uncomfortable Conversations podcast, when they are transcribing his lectures now, there is about 20 seconds to 2 minutes of something that makes sense, and the rest of the 2 hours makes no sense. So he's effectively getting you to have that small little nugget to keep you interested, keep you like dedicated, keep you loyal, and the rest is bullshit. So other things that I recognised, I won't like talk badly about Guru Jagat in personally, but I will talk about her doings on Kundalini Yoga. So over time, I really noticed that her feed was just becoming about selfies, 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 alongside Gurbani, and then she'd be talking about sex and Gurbani together, and it was just getting weird. And then it was becoming very like, I see how there is such thing as toxic positivity, because that's what this yoga is all about. It's about put on some white clothes, chant Sat Nam all the time, even though you feel like poo. Like it was toxic positivity, light washing. She was just preaching and spieling out these things like, do the beam prayer. Like, and the way she said things was very, very direct and very enthusiastic. And it would almost like, I remember once she said to like move the ring from the middle finger and put it on the other finger because it was bad luck or something. And I was just like, yes, I will do that. Like, it was very weird. I think overall, Kundalini Yoga picks up on people not feeling enough. And it's almost like when you go to the doctors with something the matter, you're given some drugs and they're going to fix the problem a little bit. But if there's something deeper going on, they're not really going to touch the surface. They're going to help a little bit. But let's say they're very prescription-like, oh, you feeling depressed? Do Kriya for depression. Do you need some help in your marriage? Do the Kriya for sexual elevation. Like, if you look through the books, a lot of it is saying, like, tend to your bottom chakras. And some of it's like, tend to your navel center to feel grounded. But a lot of it is gearing towards, like, more sexual elements. And again, I think it's very confusing. At one time you're told to be like a perfect princess all dressed in white, and the next you're told to be this amazing fantastic woman, and it's very conflicting. It's almost saying be two things but don't be that thing. It boggles my mind. And I think there is it's good that people are talking, because when I was in the yoga community, nobody talked to each other. We had friendships, but again, they were only slight friendships. And I think we'd have these big events like White Tantric. I went to at least 2 or 3 of them, which I think only reinforced my dedication to Kundalini Yoga, which another reason I left it is because it was just taking up so much of my time, because I was planning classes, I was like practicing those classes, and I'd become a housewife and I'd become a mother, and it wasn't that I couldn't do it all. It was like I was seeing how ineffective getting less sleep and doing like 4 hours of yoga, or an hour and a half of yoga a day at least, was having on my body and my mind. At these meditation events, we just look into someone's eyes and chant, and it could be a friend, it could be a partner, it could be a stranger. And I just remember being at these events and people would just be like, oh no, I'm dealing with my own stuff. Oh, I don't want to talk. And even if I go back to training, it was almost as if we had this like group therapy set up, but there was no empathy, there was no back and forth, there was no recognition. There was, if you're going to have people in a circle talk about the things that have happened in their month, and some of these things are going to be happy, some of them are going to be not so happy, then I feel that safe space should have at least the teacher or the people in the room to effectively use a few counselling skills. I know it's not a therapy environment, but for someone to say all these things that happen in my life and that other person just goes, Sat Nam, It's not fair. It's actually more damaging, I feel, for people to say Satnam to each other. And you read about this in Premka's book. People to say Satnam to each other and they don't actually know each other. They're not friends. There's nothing deep between them. And they're using they're using something completely the wrong way anyway. So I really like the content that's come out about healing from 3HO and what's the other one? Kundalini Yoga recovery. Because if you're not into the yoga, you won't get it. But if you have been, then that is like a lifeline, because I'm telling you, I've had better conversations with people that have left and people that are doing different things in their life now than I ever did before. And when I came out of this, it was a slow and still is a process, because it was deeply interwoven, and like I said, it was because it was taking up my time. And I also realized any art I was making was all like Yogi Bhajan quotes and poses and things from his books, and it didn't make sense anymore. It's like I was doing his work and my authenticity had vanished. And at one point I did like an ebook and an e-course, and again I started to realize that there was no depth to his yoga. There was nothing on, even if I looked at other people's notes from his classes, there was nothing on how the posture helped or what a certain thing would do. It was just like, oh, this is for your kidneys. Like, again, I don't think you can trust anything that is written in any of books, unless you are looking perhaps at Kundalini energy and Hatha yoga. It has been a transformation. There has been, so aside from Kundalini yoga, I went all into Sikhi as well. And I love Sikhi. I have a Sikh name, which is great because I didn't like my name when I was younger. I'm going to be honest about that. And I love being Taran Kaur. And I love my married name as well. And it's provided me some challenges because I was a Dastar wearing Sikh. However, something that came up last summer is that I was getting traction alopecia from the front because I wasn't letting my hair down enough. And then my hair was so dry from the bottoms because I hadn't been like looking after it. And it was so dry from the back because it was being pulled every single day to put up into a turban or dastar. So I made some changes and I wear a chunni. At home, I do have my hair down. And I'm still working my way through that because, again, there's still that crossover where Kundalini and Sikhi came in very close to each other, and I have to look at it from a clear slate and how I feel now, because I've got back into my art and it's a huge thing for me to do that. I'm starting to paint again. I haven't had much time, but I am painting and that feels amazing, because that's the other thing. I think when something for people to think about, even if you're watching this and you're really skeptical about the fact that I'm talking about Kundalini Yoga in a negative way, what were you doing before Kundalini Yoga? And I don't mean you tell me, oh, I was down and out, I did this and that, I was really bad. I mean, who were you? What were you doing? What hobbies did you have? What places did you like to go? Who did you like to see? What would you do when you were on your own? What would you do for fun? Because belonging to a group that is essentially destructive, but it's like in this white package with a nice tidy bow on it, with a set of instructions to follow, that isn't enough. Because I know that since leaving, I am painting, I am drawing, I am organising myself better, I'm getting enough sleep, and I'm looking after my hair better. Because that's another thing that I don't like about groups who preach about waking up early to do things. I would prefer if they did a whole section on sleep hygiene, because I've been in Kundalini Yoga and I have a friend that was in the Hare Krishnas. They want you to get up at 4 a.m. to chant, even if you've gone to bed at midnight. They want you to get up before sunrise, but they don't tell you anything about what time to sleep. And I know we can go on little sleep. However, if we're being very realistic, we do need, well, I think I need, as I've got older, at least 7 to 8 hours sleep. I can run on 6, I can run on 5, but over time that is going to catch up with me. And it did in Kundalini Yoga. I lost the ability of my hormones because nothing was functioning. I felt light as a feather all the time and I couldn't feel my body because I was so vegetarian. And these are things that I have changed because my health was declining because I was doing a lot of yoga, eating only vegetarian foods, not sleeping much, all in the name of yoga and faith. And I think it's important to look after yourself, because through my experience, nobody's body is the same and nobody can tell you what you put in your body. Because ultimately, if I don't eat things in a way that I'm really satisfied. I have to eat, oh my God, beef, chicken, yum, 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 yum. I eat them because I feel more in my body and have less anorexic tendencies. And I am more alert and I'm less anxious and I'm less ADHD. And that is really important to me. So again, all of those things were completely overseen in Kundalini Yoga. Healing and transformation and recovery are a very gradual thing. I'm really grateful for people that have come out, especially singers, like I said, Sirigan Kaur, now Porter singer, Niranjan Kaur, have both come out with how they feel, and they've made drastic changes to their lifestyle and appearance that could have cost them their career, but they've flourished. And I'm grateful for someone like Snatam Kaur to be a beautiful singer and Sikh and accept that Yogi Bhajan did wrong. And essentially, I need to follow my own truth more, because essentially that is what we were told in Kundalini Yoga. We were told to follow your truth, but really I feel like we were being told to follow Yogi Bhajan's truth. And while I am deeply grateful for the experience, I am grateful for seeing clearer now, for putting on a different set of glasses, because the yoga of awareness and the yoga that was supposed to align us with our intuition, which I believe it did for meditation, a lot of it got bypassed by quotes that had a double meaning, bypassed by teacher trainings that were making those teachers rich while we all taught for donations and minimal money. Thank you for watching. If you resonate with some things that I have said, please type it in the comments and I will get back to you.